r/NoSleep. Posted by u/its M25. Don't let the people in the forest see your face. I grew up in a small town called Evelink. It's located on the outskirts of Delaware. The population there was just over 1,000. I grew up there with my single mother and 2 brothers. I was the youngest, so was the punching bag of the siblings, but we all loved each other really. It's the type of town where everyone knew everyone. All the shops were owned by families that lived there, and the bakeries always had fresh homemade goods. Overall, it was a great place to grow up in. Apart from the fact the town was very superstitious about the surrounding woods. It was surrounded by these massive woods, miles and miles of woods. The kids and adults never went in them. The only people you ever saw in there was woodcutters. There was only one road that went through them. It was always referred to as the Lumberjacks Highway, as all the woodcutters would use it to transport all the cuttings from the forest back to the town. They were the only people to really use it, as not many people came to visit Evelink. Growing up, all the kids were told never to go playing in them. All the adults of the town had these made-up horror stories about giant bears and packs of hungry wolves to scare the kids into staying away from them, and were warned not to listen to the animal noises we heard at night. The adults told us they were wailing, or it was their mating call, and we believed them. But as we grew up, we started to notice that the noises coming from the woods at night weren't noises of an animal, but none of us could ever identify what they actually were. Well, that was until the summer of 1997, and I wish with every bone in my body we hadn't. It was a hot summer's day. Me and my 2 closest friends, Bruno, Stacy, were all playing in my backyard. That night we had planned to sleep in the field just at the back of my house, a little makeshift camping night. But since we were only 11, we didn't want to go too far from home. The field at the back of my house has a thick barbed wire fence surrounding it. It keeps the field and the woods separate. It was around 7 feet tall, the barbed wire at the top adding around another foot onto it, so no one in the town was capable of climbing it. Many have tried and failed miserably, ending up grounded or in hospital. We placed outdoor camping lanterns all around the tent, lighting up the area around us, meaning we could see just past the fence. To explain the setup, we had one of those tents with the clear back. It was like a window, and it had the piece of fabric you could roll down like a crappy curtain on it. The window was facing the fence with the fabric rolled up at the top because it was tangled, and we were all too young to know how to untie it, so we decided to just leave it open. To make us feel better, we all turned our sleeping bags to face the window so we didn't have our backs to it. By the time we got settled in our sleeping bags, it was around 11 p.m. We decided to tell stories and play some card games before heading to sleep. We eventually fell asleep around 12 p.m., meaning the area that wasn't lit up by our lamps was now pitch black, making us all feel a bit uneasy. The next thing I remember was being shook awake by Bruno. I half lifted the sleeping mask of my eyes and looked up to see him hovering over me, trembling. He was panicked and looked like he was about to cry. I was still half asleep and confused what was going on. I remember asking him what was the matter, and he just raised his shaking hand and pointed into the tree line. I rubbed my eyes and looked out the tent window, and that's when I saw them, figures, just standing in the tree line, staring at us. They were almost as tall as the fence, must have been around 6.5 feet with out of proportion limbs. Their arms were almost as long as their body, and their head was smaller than the average human's. They had smiles painted onto their unmoving face, and there was gaping holes where their eyes should have been. At the end of their arms were small slim hands that warped into talons where their fingers should have been, and they were all swaying, crying all in sync. That was what the wailing noise was. I was frozen. I couldn't move. I tried to scream for my mom. I tried to run, but my body wouldn't let me. After what felt like hours, Stacy woke up and in a sleepy daze followed our gaze and met the same horrific image we were seeing. She let out a shriek, and that jump-started my brain. I threw my sleeping bag off and tumbled out of the tent. Stacy and Bruno followed behind me. Bruno still shaking and Stacy crying hysterically. Suddenly we all heard this scream. Sounded like everyone in our town began crying and wailing together. I looked back to see they were now pressed up against the fence, pointing at us and screaming and clawing at the holes where their eyes should have been. Seeing this, we all picked up the pace, jumping over my fence and tumbling into my backyard. We began frantically banging on my back door, begging for my mom to let us in. She swung the door open and pulled us all inside, asking us what the hell we were doing at this hour. Once we explained, her annoyed expression soon shifted to a look of terror. She stormed out of the room and got her house phone. She called someone and told them exactly what we have told her. She then hung up and led us all into the basement. After around 10 minutes we heard someone enter from our front door. They came into the basement light and we could now see our local priest. He had holy water, a Bible and a cross with him. He rushed in and imminently started chanting verses of the Bible and splashing the water in a circle around us. He soon looked panicked when the water around my 2 friends began drying up, but the splashes around me were untouched. Confused, I asked what was going on, but he ignored me and took my weeping mother outside to speak to her. After around 10 minutes, my mom and my two friends' parents came back into the basement. They were all crying and hugging each other. My mom was telling their parents how sorry she was and kept telling them it would be okay and to use what time they had left to enjoy it. We were all still terrified and confused. That's the last thing I remember. A week later, Stacy and Bruno went missing, both on the same day, an hour apart. They were found a day later, hanging from a tree with their eyes cut out, and limbs shred and scratched to the point where the skin was hanging off the bone. The police didn't investigate nor question anyone. The town knew why they were like this. For years I asked myself why I wasn't taken too. I was there, I had seen the same thing they had. It wasn't until my mother was on her deathbed that she told me. The sleeping mask I wore that night stopped them from seeing my full face. If it weren't for that sleeping mask, I would have been hanging from a tree just like them. I moved out of that town shortly after. My brothers decided to stay. I now have a wife and son and have tried to move on, but I recently got a letter, telling me that my brother's son had met the same fate as my two childhood befriends. That's why I'm writing this. Don't listen to the wailing from the trees, don't go exploring the woods at night, and do not let them see your face. The things that hide in the woods are hiding for a reason. May God be with you all. Next story of this video. Posted by you/its M25. Rules for the entity. Hello. This is an automated message for the government. We have received news from Area 53 that Entity 793, has escaped from testing. We request you to take immediate action to keep you and your family safe. Please follow the list of rules stated below and pray. Stay inside, stay hidden, stay safe. Rules. 1. If inside, lock all doors and windows and cut all light sources. Douse your house in any citrus-based spray/fragrance. It does not like and cannot smell you through citrus smells. If outside, retreat into any near building and ask them to follow these instructions if they do not already know. 2. Any animals must be taken into your chosen safe room. Please make sure they stay quiet and do not pace around. It can smell the animals, so a tip we have received is to douse the said animal in a citrus-based spray. It hates citruses. 3. Do not go outside until you hear the second siren. If you go outside, it can sense you. There's something different about the air out there. You are much safer inside. If you must leave, refer to Rule 6. 4. If said being enters your home and has not spotted you, please stay stationary and do not alert it of your location. Hide low, for example under bed or behind furniture. It will not linger around to find prey and alert your local authorities. If it corners you, roll into the fetal position. Protection your neck, face and vital organs from attack. Make as much noise as possible. Do not fight back. 5. Do not let it lure you out. This entity can mimic humanoid voices such as loved ones. Do not fall for it. None of your loved ones would have survived the walk over to your house. It's not them. 6. If you must go outside for any reason, douse yourself in citrus spray and take anything that can make a loud noise with you, for example pot and spoon, air horn or anything glass. Its hearing is better than us, so anything that can create a really loud noise will hurt its ears, stunning it. This could be your chance to escape. 7. If you have survived an attack, or seen the entity in a local area, please call 028399942 and give your exact location and time of sighting. Information. This creature is a humanoid being. The way to tell the difference between a human and the entity is the uncanny features. Entity 793 has elongated limbs and fingers, meaning it's abnormally taller than the average human. It's also not mastered shape-shifting, so its face will be uncanny, meaning its eyes could be lopsided and it will be smiling. It will also be quietly humming as its organs do not work the same as ours. If spotted, do not attempt to get its attention, approach, capture or kill it. All will result in death. Entity 793 will rip you limb from limb, feasting on your flesh. It will not bother to kill you first, so you will have to pray the shock hits you before the pain. Stay inside, stay hidden, stay safe.